In this video, I'd like to talk more about passing objects to functions. Now, you may recall back in the preceding lesson that we talked about the fact that every single object in Python is passed to a function by reference. And the reason for that is in Python, everything is an object, and the way you manipulate objects is through references to those objects, not by having direct access to the objects themselves. So when I pass something like a list to a function, because a list is modifiable and because the function is receiving what is in effect the location of that list in memory, the function can talk directly to the list object through that reference and modify the contents of the list. So I'm going to paste a snippet into this session here for a function called modify elements, which is going to multiply all of the elements in items, its parameter, by 2. And we want to use this to demonstrate the fact that when you pass a list into a function, the function can modify the list. So we're going to iterate through every index representing the element positions within the list called items, and for each of those items we're going to multiply its value by 2 and store the result back into the element within the original list, wherever that thing happens to be in memory. So let's go ahead and define that function, and of course we need some values to work with. So let's create a numbers list and we'll give it some values. Let's do like 5 values here, and let's evaluate numbers just so we can see its contents. And of course, if we go and call modify elements and we hand it numbers as an argument, now numbers hopefully is modified, and we can confirm that with the evaluation of numbers once again, and you can see that indeed each of the values was doubled from its original value in memory. So clearly we defined numbers outside the body of the function modify elements. When we passed it into modify elements, we saw that the result was to modify the original list. Now there's nothing in this original function definition that says items must be a list. If we study the code, we can see that whatever we're working on has to be something that's modifiable, and of course the only thing we know with this syntax for accessing its elements right now that's modifiable is a list element, so we know items must be a list. But I can pass whatever I want into modify elements. If Python doesn't like what I pass it, it will tell me by issuing an exception at runtime. So let's go and create another collection. Let's create a numbers tuple, and let's assign it a tuple of 10, 20, and 30. And of course we can evaluate that to see its contents. And now let's try to call modify elements again. This time we'll call it with numbers tuple. Now when I do that, you can see here that I'm getting an exception at execution time. There's 2 pieces to the exception message indicating line numbers where problems occurred, so I do want to talk about that a little bit. And we can see at the bottom of the error message, a tuple object does not support item assignment. So we're getting a type error because tuples can't do what we're trying to do in the body of our modify elements function. Now if you look at the traceback, it tells you information about what happened in this particular case. So first of all, it's telling me that I called modify elements in snippet number 8, which if I look up above is right here, in snippet number 8, and that caused a problem. And then separately, it's saying in snippet number 1, which if I scroll back up is the definition of modify elements, in snippet number 1, in line 4 of that snippet is where the problem occurred, and the problem at that point was the fact that tuples don't support item assignment. Remember, tuples are immutable, non-modifiable. So what you're seeing here are actual line numbers in snippet number 1. So let's go look back at line 4 of snippet 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is line number 4 of modify elements. and that's where the problem occurred. Now, all of that information in the traceback can be used to help you debug your code when you run into these types of problems at execution time.